What would you do if someone offered to buy you a yacht? Well, for Thomas and Jackie Hawk, saying yes would be the biggest mistake of their lives. In 2004, Thomas and Jackie Hawk were preparing for the next chapter of their lives. The retired California couple planned to sell their 55-foot yacht. It had the name well deserved and spend more time traveling, visiting family, and enjoying retirement on the road. To find a buyer, they placed an advertisement for the yacht. Not long after, they received a call from a man named Skylar. Skylar claimed he was interested in purchasing the yacht and appeared serious about the deal. To Tom and Jackie, he seemed like the perfect buyer. He asked questions about the vessel, discussed the purchase price, and arranged a meeting to inspect the yacht. What the Hawks didn't know was that Skylar wasn't interested in buying the yacht with his own money, but he was interested in taking it. How? We will find out as we dig deeper. You might ask, who is Skylar? Well, I got you covered because his real birth name was John Julius Jacobson Jr. Skylar had appeared briefly as a child actor and had even made a small appearance on the children's television show Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. But behind the scenes, Skylar's life was spiraling. He had a history of criminal behavior, including theft and fraud. By 2004, he was facing serious financial problems. And that's how he saw the Hawks yacht as an opportunity to get rich quick. To carry out his plan, Skylar recruited two accomplices. The first was Alonso, a correctional officer who became involved in the scheme. The second was John Kennedy, an ex-convict who had also worked as a youth pastor. Skylar's wife, Jenifer Anderson DeLeon, would later be accused of helping conceal aspects of the crime and benefiting from the stolen assets. On the morning of November 15, 2004, the Hawks met Skylar and the others for what they believed would be a routine demonstration of the yacht. The group left Newport Harbor and headed into open water. Everything appeared normal. Then the attack began. Once they were far from the shore, the three men ambushed Tom and Jackie Hawk. The elderly couple were overpowered and restrained. The attackers forced Thomas Hawk to sign documents transferring ownership of the yacht to Skylar. The signatures would later become an important part of the investigation because they showed that the killers were trying to make the theft appear legitimate. After obtaining the paperwork, the attackers tied the Hawks to the yacht's anchor.
I was able to cuff Mrs. Hawk at this time. I walked her down to the bedroom area where Skylar told me to go get some tape from the engine room. He got the tape and he told me to tape their eyes, tape their mouth.
Investigators later concluded that Thomas and Jackie Hawk were still alive when they were thrown into the Pacific Ocean. Bound together and attached to the heavy anchor,
got some rope, brought them to the back, tied them together.
They had no chance of escaping. The ocean swallowed them and their bodies were never recovered. Then the killers returned to the shore, believing they had committed a perfect crime. For a while, it seemed like they had. Friends and relatives became concerned when the Hawks suddenly disappeared. At first, there were a few clues. No bodies, no eyewitnesses, no obvious crime scene. Just a retired couple who had seemingly vanished. But criminals often make one mistake. They become greedy. After the murders, Skylar and his associates immediately began trying to profit from the stolen yacht and the Hawks' financial assets. Investigators discovered suspicious banking activity connected to the victims. They also found evidence that someone was attempting to access the Hawks' accounts and move money around after their disappearance. As the detectives dug deeper, they uncovered forged documents, financial records, and witness statements that pointed directly toward Skylar. Then the case took another turn. Authorities learned that this wasn't the first time Skylar had allegedly targeted wealthy individuals. Investigators uncovered evidence linking him to another violent crime involving a businessman named John Jarvie, who had been killed under suspicious circumstances years earlier. The pattern was becoming clear. Money appeared to be the motive. As pressure mounted, investigators confronted the suspects and pieced together what happened aboard the yacht. Without bodies, prosecutors relied heavily on financial records, witness testimony, and forensic evidence and statements from those involved. The case became one of California's most notorious no-body murder prosecutions. Despite the lack of physical remains, the evidence was overwhelming. Prosecutors argued that Skylar had carefully planned the murders so as to steal the yacht and the Hawks' assets. And you know what? The jury agreed. In 2009, Skylar DeLeon was convicted of 2 counts of first-degree murder and several related charges. The court sentenced Skylar to death. However, because California has effectively suspended executions for years, Skylar remains on death row. John Fitzgerald Kennedy was also convicted and sentenced to death for his role in the murders. Alonso cooperated with prosecutors and testified against the others. In exchange, he received a sentence of 20 years and 4 months in prison. Jenifer and John was convicted for her involvement and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. More than 2 decades later, that is 22 years, the murders of Thomas and Jackie Hawk remain one of the coldest murders in California history. See you in the next one.